Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. Monday the 22nd of November, day 22 of 30 days creative. And as you can see, the weather that has followed us for pretty much most of the month so far is once again plaguing our little jaunt out today. Now, I brought myself over to Runcarry Beach over in Portballintraig, and the tide is out at the moment, so we're just going to afford ourselves a little bit of a dander along the beach. At various points earlier on this morning, the weather, there was little gaps in the clouds, and we were getting just a little bit of a lift in the light. Nothing spectacular, but a bit of lift in the light. But if the weather stays as it is right now, I think we're going to be looking again for those smaller scenes. But as always, good to be out with the camera and good to be bringing you guys along. Now, quite an amusing story. Well, amusing to me anyway. Woke up this morning, kind of sort of came to, and then had this moment of panic. And I actually had to run to my credit card statement, but check my credit card statement quickly online. I was convinced, and I must have been dreaming about it, that after talking about not buying the GFX yesterday, I'd only gone and bought the GFX yesterday. Obviously I'd been dreaming about it, so don't know what that means. I told you, never listen to what I say. I'll probably end up bought it on a different credit card and it'll turn up in the post tomorrow or something. So anyway, right, well, let's dander along this beach and see where there's, as always, even just one little scene that takes our fancy. Doubtful, I think, but always good to walk slowly and seize what we can seize. So I've come across a little scene here. I'm a sucker for little outflows. You probably know that I'm doing a long-term project on a little outflow that is right outside our home base in Portrush. And I've always loved the little outflow here in Portballintraig as well. What shape is my hat? Some kind of, maybe it's the shape of my head rather than my hat. Anyway, I've always been drawn towards little outflows of water, and actually I could probably spend several hours just slowly drifting up and down looking for sort of shapes and patterns. And this particular outflow has always interested me because there's always like a rusty coppery tone to the water, obviously because of the deposits that are obviously being laid down in it. Actually, this is the River Bush, I believe, coming in here, which is famed for the old Bushmills distillery whiskey, which, by the way, I'm not a big fan of Irish whiskey, or at least not a big fan of Bushmills whiskey. But so I've been just sort of playing around with a couple of scenes here, and I've ended up sort of narrowing it down to looking at potentially a square crop. Now, I'm still not sure it works, simply because I think I need something protruding from the water. Now, obviously with the polarizer on, I'm able to kind of cut through some of the sheen on that and see through and below and see through into some of those coloured rocks. But I think what I really need is maybe something a bit more prominent sticking through, just to give a little bit of sort of substance to the image. I think it just looks a bit nondescript as it stands at the moment. So I'll carry on seeing whether I can find something that works better. And when I do, hopefully, we'll catch up again. So I remember whenever I first started out with photography, obviously you listen to a lot of different folks, different opinions, some of them very worthwhile, some of them perhaps not. And of course every photographer will have an opinion in terms of how you're supposed to make images. Some people will say, take lots of images and hopefully something will develop. Other people will say, grab a scene and sit on it and work it. I honestly don't think there's a right answer. Whatever works for you, works for you. For me personally, especially when I'm sort of doing more intimate scenes, which is kind of what I'm doing here, I need to really work the location. And by working the location, I mean image after image after image, until something starts to kind of click, something starts to get a little bit closer to what I hopefully had in mind. I guess it's a little bit like doing intentional camera movement. Anyone who does that will tell you that you're not going to get what you fancy, the first time you waft your camera around over your head. Quite often it won't come for, maybe several hundred of images later, and then you think, okay, that looks like it's maybe going in the right direction based upon the shutter speed or the direction of movement, etc. And then you start to kind of hone in. And that's kind of what I've been doing here. I've been very slowly. I've been here now a good hour, and I've walked about 20 foot at most. And I've just been very slowly and carefully, because the edges of the little outflow are very fragile and they keep dropping in. I've been walking very slowly, very methodically, looking for shapes, looking for something that kind of catches my eye, and making quite a few images. But those images really are, for me personally, needing to be made to help me kind of develop the final image, or an image that perhaps is going to be closer to my original vision. And I think I'm kind of starting to get close to what I wanted here. Again, what I really love about the outflow is you can get that really crazy kind of juxtaposition of the sort of solid sand and the pattern of the sand, and then you have the lovely flow of the water. And in fact, I made an image very similar to this, or similar concept to this, at, I think Mark calls it Far Away Beach, over at Red Point, on the little outflow there. Now again, it's one of those images that hasn't seen the light of day and probably won't see the light of day for quite some time. It's one of those images that kind of really appealed to me. But yeah, I quite like this here. A couple of things that appealed to me. One, that solid kind of nature of the sand. You've then got that sort of lovely, sort of bold, sort of coloured, contrasty rock. And then actually the pattern that the waves are actually making. Now there's a little kind of circular eddy going on. At the moment I'm only using a polarizer. Oh, 2 minutes. Sorry, where was I? Trying to get something sorted with a flat. Always something to get sorted with that flat. Yeah, there's a little eddy kind of forming, and it's causing a little bit of a circular one. But I've only got the polarizer on at the moment, so the shutter speed at the moment is far too short to sort of really give any proper movement. I guess I could throw a 4-stop on there and see whether or not we'll get any sort of circular movement. But to be honest, I quite like it. I quite like all the elements, the sort of curve of the sand. Well, first of all, the solid nature of the sand, the sort of shape of the sand. Then you have that lovely solid rock, and the way the water's sort of flowing over. But I guess the whole purpose of this little sort of interlude was just to say that don't take, including what I'm saying, don't take too to heart or too seriously what us photographers are telling you, sort of what you can or can't, how you can or cannot make an image. It really is your own workflow. If you standing and making one image over the course of 12 hours works for you, go for it. But for me personally, I need to be making image after image after image after image, because that for me seems to spark something in my head, which hopefully gets me closer to the final one. And all I've got to say on that is I'm glad I'm not shooting film then. Right, I'm going to get back to seeing whether we can maybe fine-tune this a little bit more, and then I guess I'll throw the image up and we'll wander on. But probably, given what I've been doing the last hour, I'll probably catch up with you again 2 meters from here. So, right, throw this image up. Well, that has been an extremely enjoyable 30 minutes, just standing looking at little mini waves. So I've had to come away from where I was standing to The tide's obviously on the way in, and sort of the area that I'm standing in is now being sort of covered over. But what's fantastic, there's a couple of things that really drew my eye to shooting just the waves. Number one, every so often, now I was originally shooting with a 2-second timer, but I realized that the waves were so dynamic that I needed more control over that, so I shoved the old cable release back in again, which, by the way, the small rig, if you've never heard of them, the small rig cages for various cameras are great because you can loosen the shorter side and actually fit a cable release properly while also having secured the camera. I know that's probably really dull and boring, so I'll move swiftly past that onto the photography side of things. Yeah, so just watching the waves sort of ripple over each other, and the sort of the polarizer just giving that lovely rich tone. And then with the cable release, every so often you could sense that the waves were getting a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more sort of white water in them as well, which just created some interest through the frame. Now, given the fact that I was shooting this in a 3:2 aspect ratio, with the concept being that I may 4:3, 5:7, I was actually shooting perhaps a little bit wider than I would have wanted to. Another benefit of shooting wider was there was lots of different shapes going on, and I think if I would have just zoomed into one particular area, the interest was actually just off frame. So giving myself a little bit of leeway, both in terms of the natural crop that I'm going to do, but also just in case something interesting happened to the left and right of my sort of main subject. But yeah, I just stood there for a good 30 minutes, I say. Just now, probably got a lot of images on there to go through, but some of them, and again, I know I started off this vlog by talking about having something solid in the frame to sort of counterbalance the flow of the waves. But in that case, it was really just the shapes and the colours of how the outflow was actually running. And that's me, a very happy chap. And once again, just proving that even on a nondescript, very overcast day, where you would think, and the old me would have thought that there's nothing to be had from a photography point of view, there's quite a lot, as it turns out. But that was very enjoyable indeed. Well, what I'll do is I shall throw up a couple of the images made from the little outflow, and we'll wrap it up there. Once again, I'm probably going to carry on shooting here for a little bit longer and just see what else I can get, but we'll call it quits there for day 22 of 30 days creative. And once again, a little lesson to me that a little scene like this, as I say, I started this vlog 2.5 hours ago, maybe more, literally just up there a little bit, and all I've done is just very slowly and methodically just made my way down the little outflow, and again just image after image after image, helping me to build up a sort of a concept closer in my head, what I'm sort of looking to go for. And I think there's probably 2 images in there that may sort of be pleasing to my eye anyway. The one where we had the sort of the solid sand patterns, and then at least one of the images that we're going to have caught with the waves. Let me know what you think, as always. And once again, thanks for following along. And I guess we shall catch up again tomorrow. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.